Hello guys, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, Stories of the Bering Sea and Beyond. I am your host, Mark Kaler. And today we have Captain Pat Cummings with us today. How are you today, Pat?
Good, Mark. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So you've listened to all the ones we have posted at this point.
Yeah.
So you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning.
Go ahead. What would you like?
Where were you born?
I was born in Seattle, raised here. My parents were born and raised here, or my dad was. And big Seattle family. I went to school down Olympia, to boarding school for high school, and went to college. I graduated from Texas Maritime Academy.
Okay, so something steered you in that direction. You were already looking at the water then, right?
Actually, I when I was going to community colleges and working on the ferries part time, and then that turned into full time. And I got a license there, but I always just wanted to go outside. I always wanted to sail outside, and jobs were so bad back then.
What time period was this?
The 1960, between 67 and 72.
Mm-hmm.
It was really tough. And if anybody from Seattle remembers that period in time, it was really tough in Seattle for any kind of jobs.
And how? So in 67, 70,
I graduated from high school in 67.
Okay, all right.
And
so it gives us an age group there.
Yeah, kind of bummed around, doing other jobs, going in and out of school. And then I got this job working just part-time on the ferries, and stayed with it. And it was a route to getting some merchant marine document. That's where I got my first license, was for the ferries.
AB, or was it?
What's that?
Was it an AB license?
No, it was a mate's. I had an AB license, and then I got a mate's license there.
Okay.
On the ferries. I think I was like 22 or 23. I'd gotten I used all the seat time and got it.
Okay.
And then I realized I wasn't going to be able to get out through like the SIU or get on with the tug companies or something like that. So I saved up some money and I applied for the Maritime Academies, got in, and then went that route.
And was there any focus in that academy, or it's just?
Yeah, originally I was going to be an engineer. So my first year there, that summer cruise was in the Caribbean and in a steamship, and that I wanted to see daylight after that. I didn't want to be stuck down there.
In the box?
Nah, too much heat, not enough.
Can you tell us a little? We haven't had anybody on that has went through the at least expressed or told us about going through the Maritime Academy. What's that experience like? How long does it take? What are you picking up?
It's a 4-year deal. You get out of there with a third assistant engineers on license, or a third mate's ocean license. It's a start. It's basically the bottom of the rung in the ocean business.
Okay.
And you start there.
And you said you did the summer cruise. Is that part of
that? Well, yeah. You have to do seat time, and you have to pay. I'd pay for this, and you had to pay for the cruise. You had to pay for everything. And you had to have 180 days of sea time in a 4-year period to get the license.
So they just put you on a boat and sent you out to the Caribbean? They
had 2 training ships, and then you did a cadet shipping on a merchant ship for usually your sophomore, junior year. Mm-hmm. You'd go do that.
Mm-hmm. So you came out of that and got out of the engine room and saw some sunlight and thought...
Yeah, I had a mate's license. I was going to go for an engineer's license, and I just thought I wanted to pursue the other route.
Mm-hmm. So where'd you go?
I worked for my first job was when I graduated. I'd worked while I was in school down in the Gulf. I would work part-time jobs too. It was kind of a good deal with Texas Maritime. I would, on my vacations, the breaks, or even while I was at school, I had a job with G&H Towing, working part-time on a harbor tug in Galveston Harbor there where the school was at, and I could go out and work that and then get off it and go to class. I skipped a lot of classes.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
When I graduated, I went to work for a bulk company for Reynolds Metals Corporation. It was a non-union job, and did that for a couple of years. It was originally, when I signed on, I took the job because it went from Corpus Christi to Longview, Washington, and so I'd get home every 78 days, and so I liked that idea.
So what were they doing?
They hauled bulk alumina. Sometimes we'd go over to Jamaica and haul bauxite from Jamaica over to Corpus. and then they hauled bulk alumina from Corpus to Longview, and then at the Longview plant they refined it to aluminum.
Okay. So a couple years doing that.
A couple years doing that. I took a trip over to Egypt, and no, I didn't spend a couple years doing that. I only made about 3 trips doing that, and then they shut the Longview plant down for a while, and they had 2 of these ships, bulk carriers, and they put them on the spot charter market, and then we ended up going all over the world, which sounds like fun then, but actually you were just going to every crap hole in the country with bulk product. And so the last trip I made with them, we'd gone over to Egypt, and we were there for like 3 months unloading this pipe in Atabea, just south of Suez, and it was terrible, and we were stuck there. So when we got back, we were going to the Alabama shipyard and dry dock in Mobile, and the ship was going to get laid up for its biannual, well, basically every 18 months they had to go in, and the Poet was another bulk carrier hauling on contract, hauling coal, and it sank, and it was actually supposed to do the second part of that contract. So when it went down and we were on our way back, they diverted us out of Mobile, and then when they sent the relief, crew relief in, my name wasn't on it, and I knew we were going to get that second contract to go back to Egypt, and I didn't want to do it, so I quit. I came back out to Seattle. I was living in Anacortes anyhow, and I started shipping out of the MMP hall in Seattle, and
made it to Alaska somehow.
Well, the first boat I ever worked on never left the dock. It was my neighbor's with me on it. It did leave the dock, and that was in '66. A guy named Erling Hansen was my neighbor, and his brother Vic Hansen, they'd gotten Erling had a boat called the Marine View, and he was king crab fishing in Kodiak, and so I was still in high school, and they purchased that boat. I think it was down in South America, doing tuna offshore on the west coast South America, and they brought it up here to PFI, and they were re-outfitting it to take it to Alaska, and they were going to fish king crab out of Dutch Harbor with it. Erling had been fishing the Marine View out of Kodiak for king crab, and he had a partner, Edmund's attorney named Milt Slater, I think. They'd got this thing together, and then Vic Hansen was going to be the captain, and they'd put a crew together, and they had it down here in the yard, and I was home from high school, and Erling said, well, you can go. I was looking for work, and he said, you can come down and work the boat in the shipyard. We'll pay you by the hour to do work down there. I don't even remember what I got paid, but I said, yeah. I'd always been kind of conning him. He had a purse center for Southeast, and I was always kind of, when I was always trying to get on, he'd take his kid up with him, and I never got an opportunity to that. So I jumped on this, and I don't know, it was June, July, and I think the boat sailed for Dutch about mid-August. I was due back in high school. Vic and the engineer on there, I can't remember his name. Guy's name was, we called him Yank. He was what I'd call older. Maybe he was 40 then or something.
Oh,
but yeah. They asked if I was, would consider going up and going with them. And oh, hell yeah. And I went to my dad, and that ended that.
So
he just looked at me. He didn't even give me an answer, and I didn't go. And then unfortunately, the boat on its way up sank in Unimac Pass with all hands. So it went down. No one was ever seen again. And I remember being over at Chris's house. Erling was there, and they're trying to get information from the Coast Guard as to what was going on. And I remember Chris just looking at me going, yeah, hey, God, you were lucky. They wanted you to go. And I didn't think, 16, I'm not thinking about that. And
right.
The reality of that stuff doesn't hit you. Well, I guess my old man was right.
Yeah.
And that was the first shot at going to Alaska. Next time I actually was going up there shipping out of Seattle for Sealand Corporation, going to from containers as third mate from Seattle to Anchorage, and then every third trip go to Kodiak, if I remember rightly.
Is that similar to how Coastal is today?
No, this is no. These are they had the Portland and the Newark, and they were converted C5s that they'd put ice bands around, and they'd started the service there. It's like what Tote does. Those guys out at Tacoma, same thing. They're roll on, roll off, and Tote was operating back then. Sealand was their competition, and they were just container ships. I don't know what they were. They weren't that 560 footers or something like that, and they're strictly containers, no break bulk, and it was all quick. You were in and out of there real fast, and they did 18 knots, which after being on a bulk carrier, which did like 9, was you'd like get a nosebleed.
You're cruising,
you thought you were cruising, and that was just relief work, and things were really hard out of there. So I was sitting at home unemployed.
How old are you now?
Oh gosh, I'd graduate. I'm 27, 28, maybe 29. I think I'm 29, and I can't get any ships out of the hall, and my wife's friend's boyfriend, Jake Jacobson, he's an attorney now, called the house. It said there were these guys they needed a mate to bring a fish processor down from Dutch Harbor, and if I was looking for, if I'd do it, they just needed a guy just to go up there, fly up, and bring it down on the delivery. And I said, yeah,
just using your paper, essentially.
Yeah, just sit on it, paper, and so they ended up actually flying me to Cold Bay, not to Dutch, and because the guy had brought it over to Dutch. And the Coast Guard wasn't happy about that because they told them they'd hammered him. It was the old Western Pioneer, the wooden tug, that had been converted to a freighter, renamed to Western Pioneer, and then Denton Sherry, Whitney Fidalgo owned it at the time, and they chartered it out for something, and the Coast Guard they were hauling freight. They had it. They told them they had it as when I went on board. I got on board in Cold Bay and. They had these plate freezers that weren't connected to anything, just sitting there, and that was what their excuse was, saying they were a processor. But
so it wasn't even a processor.
No, it was hauling freight. It basically was hauling freight. Yeah,
okay.
And the Coast Guard busted them because they couldn't haul freight. Apparently, the ship had an issue with it, and so I took it down, and these guys are getting paid by the day. And we took the scenic route. I think that was like a 15-day trip. We holed up the guy, they're all getting paid by the day. I was not, at that point in time, I'm not thinking we go, Great Circle straight from Cold Bay to Bully, Juliet and get it over with.
Right.
These guys, I got to see a lot of Southeast Alaska and Canada. And we sat around, they did a lot of fishing, a lot of hook time waiting for weather.
Earning that money.
They were they were getting their daily rate, and which is something, being a good old union boy, I was used to. I was good with that, and I needed the money, but it wasn't much. It paid I think I was getting $100 a day.
So that you were 29.
I was 29. That was
78, 79.
Yeah, no, I think that would have been 80. So no, I'd have been 31. Yeah. Oh, I think I was 19.
I was going to say either my math's bad or you were in high school until you were 20.
No. Well, yeah, that's a possibility. I think I was 31.
Okay.
At 80, 81. Because that next summer is when I got hired by Baranoff Courageous.
Okay.
I think the next summer. So that would have been, it's 31, 32. It's molding a little bit here on getting it together. On that kind of stuff, remembering these dates and the years.
We're close.
We're close, and so next thing, I got done with that, and went home. They called me at the end of January, wanted to know if I would go do herring with them as a mate, and they'd actually converted it into a processor. And Bob Bingham, Lafayette Fisheries, had it on charter from Denton Sherry. and I'm trying to remember. It was a Lafayette. He had this mud boat named the Lafayette. He also had some 40-foot bands on the back of it.
I know the Lafayette very well. I worked on that deck.
Did you? When did you work on that?
Oh, it had 93, 94
Oh, no,
maybe.
this was...
but in the Norquest days. Norquest
Oh, okay, when Norquest had it. Yeah. Bob was quite the character. And that was my first real experience of dealing with fishing. And
was it on the Courageous?
No, it was on back on the Western Pioneer doing herring.
How big was the Western Pioneer?
She was a 180-footer. Mm-hmm. But basically what Bob had done is he was just using it for storage, for cold storage. And he'd do all the production on the Lafayette. We'd tie up next to him and then...
swing it over?
Yeah, because Lafayette had no cold storage on her. And so we were using... And she stored quite a bit. She had a hold with tween decks forward and a whole tween decks aft, Mary Falls gears on her. And she had double tween decks aft. And, yeah, she stored quite a bit of product on there. And she had a couple of portable blast freezers on there, but they were not made to do herring, and there was no production really out of that boat. It was mainly, yeah, which was okay for me because I was getting paid by the day, but he had some guys on there that were on case rate or hourly. I can't remember how he paid them. As so far as processors,
you were mating on that boat?
I was the mate on there, yeah. Well, also so-called production supervisor, and I didn't know crap about it, but I learned a lot real fast.
Yeah.
And we started at Cruikshanks in March, went up to Sitka, then did Prince William Sound, then went over and did Tojiak, and then we ended up at Cape Romanzoff, and we did a venture there with the Native Corporation out of Bethel on herring that he had just the other side of Nunivak Island up there. And then I went down to the bay, and then they were going to do salmon, and that just was... I've been on there too long already.
How long?
Well, so we started converting and loading the boat in Tacoma in, I think they called me about mid-January, and I lived in Anacortes, so I was down there all week, go home on weekends. And we sailed to make Cruikshanks in March, which was, I don't know, mid-March, towards the end of March, I think. And then from there until we hit the bay, Romanzoff. So Tojiak went off. Then we went to Romanzoff, and Tojiak was long. We sat there for a while. I think we sat there for a couple of weeks before the herring came in. It was my first experience with that, and I didn't quite understand what was going on.
Yeah.
Then
when
to
they're
Romanzoff.
not there, they're not there, but when they show up, they're all there.
Yeah. It's it's a bang, and it's done. And then you got to get it all put away. And then we went to Romanzoff, and then I think we made it to the bay about the first week of June.
Okay.
Then I got off.
You were done.
I was done with a Western Pioneer, and Bob's wife Beverly. Did you know the Bingham? Did you know Bobby?
No.
She was.
It's possible, but I don't remember.
I had a little trouble getting along with her, and so it was probably best I got out of there early.
Okay. So you came back to Seattle?
Came back to Seattle, tried to find some work or whatever, and I think I was out mowing my father-in-law's lawn in Anacortes, and walked in the house, and there was a friggin' newspaper ad there for a relief captain for summer processing in Bristol Bay. And so I called the number, and then they told me to come down there, and I interviewed with them, and then they called me up and said they wanted me to do the job. So I went on board the boat over here. It was in the yard here at Foss, Baranoff, and they were loading it. We were doing shipyard on it at the same time, getting it ready to go back up. They were on contract to Peter Pan, and Chuck Hosmer hired me. He was their full-time captain. So I was 32 maybe by then, I think. Chuck was 28. Guys were a lot younger then running boats. I mean, he was running that Baranoff for, I think, a year and a half before that when he took over.
He probably seemed seasoned, though, didn't he?
No.
He didn't seem... Oh, he seemed young?
No. Yeah, he seemed young. I was young. He seemed younger than me.
Okay.
I mean, he knew how to fish. There's no doubt about that. He knew what he was doing. But
well, that's what I mean by
yeah.
seasoned.
But
I mean,
now you think, sure, you think, but not. I mean, no.
he's 28.
He's 20. That ain't changed the fact he's 28, and I'm not much older.
80s.
Yeah, and I'm not much older. And yeah, and but he did know. He did know what he was doing. I'm no doubt in that. And he spent some time learning it, and he'd learn from the Baranoff had some guys on it that knew what they were doing, and they were aggressive crab fishermen. And this was just a processed summer salmon. So I went up to the bay, spent the summer up there. Let's see, I'm going to get a little confused on where we went and what we did. We did Bristol Bay. On the Baranoff, I did Bristol Bay, and then the next summer when I ran it, I think we did the bay, and then they sent me to Kodiak Larson Bay to do a contract there with Larson Bay, the cannery there, on freezing #1 pinks, doing an in the round freeze on them or something. There was a deal like that, and then in between time I worked relief mate for him in the the first winter I went and did single pot brown crab out west in the Aleutians. And then I got off there, and then they put me over on the Courageous to do bear dye. And then that's the first time we did Opelio. So
how big is the Courageous?
It's a 180 footer.
How many people on board?
It depends on what you were doing. We processed Opelio. We had bunks for 36, so we filled the bunks. We did, when we were doing longline and cod, we'd do 24 to 28, depending upon just who we could get. And
so was the platform easy to switch over from species?
not originally, no, but both. What we originally did with the Baranoff, we got into this black cod thing on the pot fishing, and so the next year we came down, and that fall, this is the second summer I worked running it for relief for salmon, and then we did a conversion to black cod pot fishing and went off the coast of Washington here, and I worked mate on that, and then it went up to southeast, caused a little issue with the black cod thing and the pots, and then they called me up and asked me to come down and if I'd captain the Courageous and do the same thing. So we converted it over to longline and black cod.
Was that the first set of keys you got? The Courageous?
You mean where
You're
the
captain
whole
of the,
thing
or
was
you're
mine?
the captain of the boat, yeah.
No, I was captain of the Baranoff during the summer.
Oh, okay. I thought you were relief captain. Or,
well,
yeah, I guess that is still, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, now you're the main captain.
Now I'm the guy that's is working on budgeting, crap like that,
Sure.
and stuff like that.
What year was that?
I'm going to say 84. I think that was 84. So in January of 84. So the Baranoff took off to southeast in January of 84, black cod fishing and pots. And then we finished the conversion, and then we headed up. By then, NIMS, the North Pacific Fishing Management Council had thrown us out of eastern Alaska, made it illegal to longline black cod pots, pretty much east of Fogneck.
Can you explain long lining pots?
Longline and pots?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 20 millimeter ground line, and every 100 fathoms we'd have a gannion stuck into the long line with a C-ring, and then we'd have these rectangular cod pots with cod tunnels in them, and they weighed about.
They look a lot like a crab pot today.
No.
Okay.
No, they're rectangular. They're not a square type. They're more of a rectangular, and they weigh way less. They were because in order to set them off on a house aft vessel, you have to stand them up and
shove them off
by hand, and so it would take two guys to lift them. I think they were between 90 and 100 pounds each,
and they're all tied together.
They're secured, yeah. And so you would run out, we'd set it about 7 to 8 knots. We got a little bit faster as we got better, and you'd set the anchor, throw the buoy over, and we're fishing 400 or 500 fathoms to up to about 200 fathoms. So you let the buoy line stream out. We'd have these bins down the side, and the line would be laid out there with these rings sitting there. I'm trying to recall those from memory.
And then so
and
just,
then as
you kick the first one over, and you got a limited amount of time to have
first
that next
one
one
over,
ready, right?
you got a little bit. Yeah, you got 100 fathoms of line spooling out at 7 knots.
You're watching it,
but you got enough time to click the next one up, pounce it up on the rail. They're all stood up on end, pre-baited, ready to go, and then you fling it over. And we had I think we started out with about 1,000 of those things at the start, which was actually too many. But the whole thing was pretty much financed by Nisui Corporation. They were the ones that wanted the boat to get into it.
Could that be a little scary? Seeing, 200 pounds, still 200 pounds, especially when they're
That's about
flying off the back of the deck.
yeah. If it hung up, it got a little freaky. It goes scooting down that rail and bang up against the house and right up. But they got pretty good at it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of doing it.
Sure.
For a while, practice doing that.
And then pulling them back up is just the exact opposite, right?
Yeah, we had a larger block we bought from Marco, and they tested it out on the Baranoff. It was pretty good size. I remember going with Chuck to the Fish Expo, I think about a year before that, and he saw that thing down there, and they were thinking about doing this. And we were looking at it, and they bought 2 of them. We called them swing haulers. They're pretty good. They were about 3 times the size of a Marco block.
Yeah.
And
it's probably 5 feet in diameter.
No, maybe not quite that much. But it was hauling 20 millimeter long line, and a lot of it.
Okay, so at this point you're still only 34, 35.
Yeah, I think.
When you got the Courageous.
36.
I know that you spent a number of years on there.
Yeah.
So over that amount of time, 22 years was it?
Yeah, I think on the Courageous, and then a couple.
So you grew old on that boat.
Yeah, real quick because
Yeah.
it was a catcher processor.
Yeah.
And in that amount of time, we did everything.
How often was the boat working? How many months?
Yeah, well, no, that sucker worked all the time because we went from Dick Pace and Bob Gilman were kind of involved in coming up with ideas for us. I bought into the boat in I think it was November of '86, I believe, and then I bought in, kept buying a little bit more into it as we went along, and those guys were pretty innovative on coming up with ideas. Chuck was pretty innovative on it, and so they got us. They sent Doug Wells, who was the relief captain and one of the owners over on the Baranoff, and he and I went up to look at a longline system, Mustad longline system in Canada, on a guy doing dogfish, and so we took a look at that, thought it was feasible, went out and we bought a reconditioned system and we put it on the boat, and we started fishing cod, '88 I think, when we started in the cod fishery. We went back to crab, we went back to Pelio, which we started doing that again.
So this boat was working.
Yeah, so then we would do the cod, we'd longline cod, but outside of that we did all sorts of dumb things. I remember the Baranoff went and did octopus with habitat pots. That was a joke. I went out and did deep water single pot tanner. We did Kagani crab. We were thinking about doing snails. A couple trips to Russia. Yeah, we would do. Sometimes we were lucky we'd get 2 months in at the shipyard.
Wow.
And they constantly, not that it made money all the time, but they were constantly coming up with something.
Something new.
Something just here, try this. And when we took over ownership, when both boats went into that deal, then we took over ownership, they pretty well had lost that right, and Nisui had gotten out of it, and Dutch Harbor Seafoods had gotten out of it to pretty much tell us this is what we had to do.
Right.
And
get a little more control over what the boat was.
We had total control over those boats and managing them.
So then you just
But they came up with they would come up with these ideas, and Chuck was always looking at that kind of stuff. He would be looking at anything and whatever, and we'd give it a shot, anything to keep working.
Which Chuck are we talking about?
Chuck Hosmer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's still managing those boats.
Okay. Any scary experiences up there? 22 years, you got to have something that.
Scary, yeah. But anybody didn't have scary everybody has it. You're always something that's scary. But
do you remember the first time you were scared?
No, I was always scared.
Okay. I had Harley say the same thing. Like,
but and I listen to Harley, and I think it's not, you get scared, and if you're getting scared, it's only for a brief second, especially guys like that have that position like Harley or I've got, or any other captain's got that position up there. Sure, you're going to get that scared, but it's not going to be that I'm going to scream and holler scared, because right after you get that, Jesus, this is not going to go well crap, you've got to mitigate the circumstances, and you got to get your ass out of it.
Yeah.
And so you get focused, just like you're focused fishing, fishing is actually an extremely boring, tedious task, especially when you're pulling pots, but you have to focus constant.
Let me reword the question for you.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of a time when you had to get your ass out of it?
It's an example of a time where you're not sure of the outcome, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the worst storms I've ever been in my life has been up here off of about Triangle Island, off to the north end. That whole area in there has an anomaly to it of these subtropical lows will push in from the south, and then that continental maritime cold air will stay there, and these storms will push in there, and they get pretty nasty, and they come up quick, and then they'll stall and they'll start to back. And we were coming down in beginning of December one year, and it just nice, and too nice, and
too nice.
Yeah, it was too nice, and it was too warm, and the cloud formations and everything. And I kept calling Tofino, asking him about that, because all of a sudden that friggin' barometer started dropping about 1 millibar every 15 minutes. And so I kept getting this weather forecast out of Tofino, and I kept calling them up and asking them to reconfirm this forecast, and they weren't even close. And so this low had come up, pushed in there, and stalled and backed, and next thing you know, we're in these just horrendous seas and this 100-knot wind. And the Courageous is a schooner rig. She was always good at running with it up to a point. Well, you reach that point where this is not a good idea. We're not going to run with it, and we're going to turn around and we're just going to sit into it and ride this out. And we rode that thing out. I was impressed with the intensity of it. We were there for about 30 hours straight, heading northwesterly, but we were making about a knot and a half in a southeasterly direction. This thing was just pushing. Yeah, it was pushing us down, and we ended up, I think, just to the northwest of Brooks Peninsula, and we're down there. And I remember this Canadian version of their P3, Canadian Air Force P3. It kind of flew over us about every 4 or 5 hours. At one time they called down on the VHS and asked us how we were doing, and I'm going, oh yeah, we're doing.
That's an intense 30 hours.
It's an intense storm, and but it's not anything you guys don't see, and you just ride it out. But it was the wave height,
the length of time too.
Yeah, the length of time. It blew for a long time, and we blew that length to where we weren't going to turn around. If you didn't have some confidence, you wouldn't keep coming back. So you're kind of confident we're just going to ride this thing out. But I remember going down into the steering gear room, into the lazarette down there. We got 2 steering gears, electric, hydraulic, and listening to those things whine. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wonder when the last time those things were torn apart and looked at. And because I realized if that fails under these conditions, we're going to broach, and this is not good. Mm-hmm. And so you get a little, those are the things, but it's a constant stress.
Yeah,
it's just a constant stress. And fear is something, but you're stressing the whole time on making sure you just stay out. Of course, I didn't sleep.
Yeah.
I think I'd go back to sleep. We'd had a mate, and the mate was a great guy. Pat Wagner is one of my best friends. The guy's a great guy. And you're up there, but you're still not sleeping. You're not back to sleeping.
No.
And I had
you're just trying to decompress from that stress of jockeying for the last 8 hours.
Yeah, you're just jockeying there. But the thought and process in you is you got a single engine, you got one prop, you got one rudder, and we had double up 2 steering gears. But
in the back of your mind, it's one problem.
Well, in the back of your mind, always there's never one thing that sinks a boat. It's always unfortunate events that come together. You can lose power and just sit there. You can lose power and catch fire. You lose power, catch fire, and start taking on water, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
You know, you can work it out, but it's never just that one thing. So,
did those get inspected next shipyard?
oh hell yeah, yeah. It was. It like Trident does a way better job than we did.
So, what year did you get off the Courageous then? And
I went out rationalization. 2004 was my last year.
So, what made you decide that was it?
I'm an old man.
You're
One of those
now.
other times you're talking about, I was sitting up in December in 2003, and we tied her up and we were going home for Christmas, and the gal from Amelia's called me. One of my guys is down there, just screwed up big time, and he didn't make the plane. And so it's just me and I think the engineer left on board the boat. We got tied up, and there's probably isn't one guy you haven't interviewed that runs a boat that hasn't gone through this one. So she's calling me up. She says, I got to call the cops unless you come down and get them. So I go out, get the truck, go down, pick them up, get them down to the dock, and we're at the city dock up in Dutch. And tide's out, and there's no real direct onto the boat. I got to step out onto those huge fenders, built-in fenders that they've got there on that quay with him, and he's drunk, and trying to get him back on the boat, and he loses his balance, and I reach out to hang on to him, and he goes. And unfortunately or fortunately, he was a portly kind of guy, and he got stuck in between the bulwarks and the dock. Fortunately, the wind was blowing us right on, and he's wedged in there. But I went the other way, and I'm leaning backwards, looking down at that water. And, you know, it goes right through your mind. If I hit that, no one's finding me. I'm not getting out of here. And,
yeah.
And I said, I'm just getting too old for this shit.
That was it.
Well, I was one of the mitigating. That was one of the final reasons.
How'd you get him out from between the boat?
I got off, got down there, and I reached over and just kind of drug him with him helping and got him up. Yeah, it was between the dock and the boat. They have these huge, large, because they bring those freighters in there. And city docks built for larger ships, not built for fishing boats. But we were there. That was just one of the last straws, you know.
Yeah, it's about time.
Yeah. Time for somebody else to do it.
You said you had ownership interest in the boat. Do you still, or?
No, they rationalized. The corporation bought it out. Navy Corporation bought it out, and I sold out.
Okay. And then retired for a little bit? Because I know you're back to work now.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Semi-retired. Yeah.
Always kept your feet running anyway?
Yeah. Just, I worked had a nice little part-time relief summer job up on that ferry, the Coho, ran from Port Angeles and back, and work on that, and pretty much then did nothing. Then did this job. Yeah.
Which you'll have the best advice probably from anybody we've had on here so far. When you've heard me ask the question many times that our fleet is getting older and not younger, and needing new blood, and not just our fleet, but the entire industry in general. And you're probably in a unique position to tell people what would be a good avenue to try to reach out to enter this kind of industry.
Oh, cold hard cash to the staffing manager.
Right. Oh.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Because that's what you do now.
In hundreds. You know what? I listen to you say that, and I say this to guys calling all the time, because that's what I'm doing for Trident now. And so I actually been thinking about that. And it's a hard thing to really say other than just the pat things. But actually, walking the dock, meeting the guys, putting yourself in a position in a job where if you're not related, if it's a family thing, and if you're related, you're going to get a job. You don't have to do anything. But if you're not a related person, which a lot of people working for Trident aren't, they come out of the blue, you just got to get somewhere in a position to be familiar with the people that are working these boats. And the other thing, that's the main one. If a lot of the fishing guys come recommendation from the captains or the crews.
Well, the captain still has total control, right?
They have total controls, but they really don't. They're looking for people too. They're looking for people too, and they're guys working for them have got friends and stuff. But the other thing is if you've got outside of common sense and a good work ethic, if you've got a little bit of a background, I tell them at mechanics, if you can get anything into do mechanical, any work, if you can get any, near in the marine industry, because that's a lot easier to get that job, and then get a familiarity with the industry and the boats. Just a little bit of that, it helps to try and present you to these guys. Have that background's good. Mechanical background, you can cook. If you can cook, that's a big deal.
Yeah, guys like to eat.
Yeah, they like to eat, and there'll be a lot of captains will go, well, I haven't got a guy that can cook, and if he can meet the other criteria, that's a big deal. There's a little thing. They all add up. I mean, persistence is it. You just be persistent as heck. You don't. When I tell you I don't have anything, you don't give that. You don't give up on me.
Call back. You
again. Keep calling back again. Yeah. And it's about a 50% washout rate at least. It's that way.
It's a tough job up there.
It's a hard job on people. It's not for everybody. It's fun. It's lucrative. It's a whole different lifestyle, and there's a lot of independence. And these guys really don't take a lot from a lot of people. I mean, they take a lot from those captains, that's for sure.
But not from the rest of the world.
But not from life in general.
Yeah.
They're just different people.
Before we close out, boat dreams.
You're not going to ask me about the strikes, are you?
The strikes.
No, okay, good. Never mind.
What? Well, first of all, I thought you'd have way more animated stories because I talk to you like quite often.
I've got them,
and
but
you're
I'm
like
not giving.
You're like one of the most animated storytellers ever.
Yeah. So.
And now I'm getting that. Well, I went on, for 2 years I did this, and we were.
I give you animated stories.
I feel like you're taming her down here.
I am. So most of these guys are still alive, so I got to be careful.
Can't ride them out yet. Get me back in 10 years. So, what about boat dreams? Did you have boat dreams?
Oh yeah, everybody has a boat dream. You mean going up the river and there's not enough water and and you wake up, it's a frustration dream.
Just that very vivid dream.
Oh, real vivid, yeah. You look over the side and there's any water there and you're driving on land. That kind of,
on your boat?
And you're So, but what it is frustration dream. You have the boat dream when the crab pots come up empty. Yeah, I watched that movie. What is that? The storm thing on the East Coast. What's that?
Perfect Storm.
Perfect Storm. And I'm thinking the only part of that was true is when the captain was up in that wheelhouse crying because he wasn't catching anything.
Andrea Gale.
Yeah.
Yeah, she went down.
No, she went down. That part's true too. But there was a lot of drama in there. But the real drama was when he was crying because he wasn't catching anything. Well, he's got all those guys down there staring at him on percentage.
Well, that's just it. When you're the captain, you're in charge of the boat, and it's a great big deal, right? But when you're not catching anything, those guys down on deck
they're not
it's
happy.
All your fault.
If we were opie fishing in the pot, the nice thing about us, we were opie fishing and the pots went dry. And they went dry, and didn't look like it was going to get any better. Next thing I know, there'd be this friggin' codfish hanging from the lip of the wheelhouse down in front of me. They'd want to go codfishing.
Oh, that's how they told you?
That's how they said it's time to switch over.
Really?
Yeah, because you used to fish it back when we were doing it. I mean, when we started fishing opies, they closed by regulation in August. And the first few years we did it, they would close it because they'd get soft. The guys would go way up north, and by June they'd get soft.
The crab would actually get soft.
The crab would get soft. You'd get a few of those deliveries in, and then AGF and G would call it.
They were starting to shed.
Yeah. And first year we went to Russia, I think, holy crap, it drove the price into the bottom. We didn't make any money on that Russian trip, but I think they put away over 320 million pounds of Apelio. They flooded the friggin' market, and the price just went. The finished product price. We got paid on finished product price.
The Russians did?
No,
or just in general,
being a catcher processor.
Mm-hmm.
We got paid on finished product only.
I see. Well, the industry's changed a lot since the time you started.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah.
Both in actually every aspect of it.
The aspect of the hard work hasn't changed.
No,
crab fishing's a hard job. It's those guys, and I don't know if the rationalization has really changed the attitude of time is money. These guys go up there, they want to. It gives you that little cushion as to whether or not you're going to lay up or whether you're going to go out.
You still got to expect a delivery date too.
These guys have got, and they know that it isn't going to do them any good to be up there for 3 weeks when they could get down in 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's it makes sense, and they're hard driving people to begin with.
Well, they've been that way. That's what got them.
They achieve that position because they're that personality. They're hard drivers.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot to get there. You know.
I just stumbled into it. I had bad luck.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Well, I had no experience, right? And so now I've owned part of the boat, and the guy that I was working for as the manager is now working for us. And I got him in a bar one day, and I think we were up at Juneau in an ADF&G meeting thing over that observer deal. And I just kind of look at him and I go, why in the hell did you ever hire me? I'd never been fishing before. I didn't have that much master's time. And he looks at me, he said, well, I only had 3 guys apply for the job. And he goes, I got out of the newspaper, for God's sakes.
You just you're mowing the lawn.
And I go, he said, one of the guys was 78, and the other guy had just gotten out of rehab. And I looked at him and I went, oh shit, I should have asked for more money. I'd known that.
Well, we're running skinny on time here, Pat, but do you have anything you feel you need to tell us before we go?
No, I'm done. It's a good thing I wasn't drinking.
Yeah,
you can have me back then.
We got crystal water here.
If you want the stories, you can have me back. I was doing the political thing here.
Okay, well.
Was it all right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're not done yet.
Oh.
Okay, guys. Pat, thanks for coming today.
Yeah.
It has been fun. We did get some stories, and it's always good to see all the different perspectives of every captain we have on. In fact, a letter we got from Sue Freese that we read on the air a while back kind of says it all. Everyone's got a different story, a different uniqueness to them, and that's what I think draws the listeners into listening. Is you don't know what you're going to get, So anyway, thanks for coming today. I hope you.
Well, yeah. No, it was great. Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right, guys. This has been another installment of Galley Stories, Stories of the Bering Sea and Beyond. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or just want to contact us in general, it's mark@galleystories.net. And you can find us on Facebook at Galley Stories as well. And we will see you guys next time.